Hey YouTube, it's another beautiful day here in Wisconsin. I guess it's almost officially fall now, if not already. Nice cool temps, about 65, 70 degrees. So what are we talking about today? Let's talk about head. No, not that kind of head. LS7 heads. On the channel and just in general on forums and stuff, there's a lot of questions all the time about what to look for with Z06s and LS7s. And obviously one of the biggest and most glaring issues is the heads, right? And the valve guide issue. So a million people have talked about it. Let's make it 1,000,001. This is just my opinion. I'm not an expert. I'm not a mechanic. I don't do it for a living. I just read a lot. I've gone through it myself with this car, and I'll share a little bit about what the issue is, kind of what options you have, how to tell if you have the issue, and just some opinions on how to fix it, or at least do your best to avoid it. So what exactly is the issue? Again, I'll summarize it because pretty much everybody knows what the issue is. The heads from GM, the OEM heads, the castings, the valve guides that came with them. Valve guides are basically just little cylinders of metal that are hollowed out that go inside a cylinder head and keep the valve stem straight in the guide. So as they go up and down on the spring, there's little to no vibrations. There shouldn't be any play in it beyond what the recommended tolerances are. We're talking 10,000ths and thousandths of an inch here, so they're very, very tight tolerances. So when GM made the C6 Z06s, and this is all years, that's another point of contention, it's all years, 06 to 13. The company that supplied the valve guides as part of the heads had a machining error, and GM obviously never really came out and admitted this, otherwise they'd have a lot of repair work to do and warranty work. But the guides themselves, some of them had a machining error where they're not perfectly concentric, basically meaning they're not, the cylinder, the opening inside the valve guide isn't completely perfectly circular all the way up and down with the same measurement or radius and diameter across that opening. So what does that mean? What problems does that cause? Obviously, when your valve is going up and down in the valve guide thousands of times a minute, that's just under normal driving scenarios, 2,000 or 3,000 RPM. If you have the error in the guides in your particular engine in your heads, over time, that machining error, it can get worse. So it might be within spec when you bought the car, but if you have that error, and pretty much every car isn't perfect anyway, so they all have some degree of error, just a matter of how bad it's going to be. As that valve goes up and down, it keeps wearing on the valve guide. If the valve guide was close to perfect, the valve as it goes up and down wouldn't be causing any further issues, but the ones with the error, it'll wear incorrectly or unevenly over time. So the question for those issues, if you do have the issue, is how long is it going to take for it to cause an issue, a bigger issue? So as the valve goes up and down and it wears, it causes, the clearances to get more and more, which isn't good, because if it gets to the point of the valve actually vibrating inside the guide, then it's just a matter of time until all hell breaks loose, right? Where the valve actually breaks off from the spring and drops into your cylinder and touches your piston, and engine goes bye-bye. So how do you know if you have this issue? A lot of people think they can just do a wiggle test, which is basically just taking your valve covers off and putting your hand on the valve end of the valve stem by the spring and just wiggling it back and forth. Obviously, no human knows the difference between 20 thousandths of an inch wiggle and 40 thousandths, which is, I believe, is out of spec. I don't have those numbers offhand, but no human's going to be able to know that just through touch. If there is significant play just by touching it, you could probably tell that you might have an issue, if depending on how far gone it is. But the right way to do it, and the way GM now requires it to be checked, I believe they did allow the wiggle test at one point, but the right way to check it now, and the only way they'll do it at a dealer to even accept any kind of warranty work, is to take the head off and use precise measuring tools to measure the tolerances and the clearances. So I guess the question then is, what do we do as owners? Do we go ahead and do that? Well, now you're talking a lot of labor to get the heads all the way off and do that measurement, and your engine's half torn down just to see if you have a problem that may or may not exist. So what a lot of guys do, including myself, is instead of going halfway and just to see if you have an issue, why don't you just address it at least as permanently as can be. No solution is absolutely perfect and will last forever, unless you're very, very lucky. But since you're taking the heads off anyways, there's plenty of companies out there now, WCCH, AHP, other aftermarket companies that offer aftermarket guides. That's really the crux of the issue. And, you know, while the heads are off, you can do valve springs and beef up the valve train all you want. But the real issue is getting those guides replaced. Companies like K-Tech and others recommend bronze. That's all they use is bronze guides. AHP recommends powdered metal valve guides, which is similar to OEM, but the metal itself is actually a lot harder, so it takes longer for that wear to happen over time. I went with AHP. One of the reasons I did is because they have a lot of GM castings, the LS7 heads, in stock already that they've polished, cleaned up. You get upgraded parts if you want them. You get the new valve guides, of course, and they're just ready to go. You can just order them, and you don't have any downtime then. You just order them up. Then once you get them, if you're that good with your mechanic skills, you can take the heads off and replace them yourself, which is the least amount of downtime possible of any of the options. Or what I did is just take the heads, drive your car to a shop of your choice that you trust, and have them do it. And you're literally only talking a day of downtime. You know, usually to replace the heads is a day or two, depending how busy the shop is. So again, you can go through the expense and the time and kind of the uncertainty of ripping your engine half apart just to see if you have the issue, or you just go ahead and have the issue addressed, knowing that you are more than likely to have the issue at some point during the ownership of your car anyways, if you intend to keep the car for any significant amount of time. The prices on the fixes obviously is going to vary a lot. AHP, I did their stage 4 package and had them milled a little bit for better compression. I believe it was $1,600 or $1,700 at the time, plus the labor to actually do it then, so you're looking at, all said and done, you know, $2,300 to $2,500, depending on the labor rate and all those upgrades that you may or may not want to do with your heads when you get them. There's other companies like Frankenstein and Brodix and all these other companies that you can spend $1,500 on some heads, or, you know, $4,000 or $5,000, depending on what you all want done with them, or if you want to go OEM or aftermarket. So again, there's plenty of options out there. It can seem confusing, you know, if you're not sure about what to do. You know, at a minimum, I would say if you have a Z06 with any significant miles, you know, and by significant, it can really mean any amount of miles. There's stories online of cars with 5,000 miles on, and they're completely stock engines, and their valve guide wore to the point of it dropped into the cylinder and shot a rod out through the, you know, block or whatever, and just had catastrophic failure, and you need a new engine. But if you have 10, 20, 30,000 miles, you know, I would highly recommend just taking them off, getting them replaced, the valve guides at a minimum. And a lot of other guys, and myself included, would say if you're going to go that far, then throw a mild cam in it. Have someone like Pat Gare online spec you a cam, or go with something really mild and proven if you just want a little bump in power, since you're spending that much money on the labor anyways, and time. You know, time is money as well. Other than that, you know, there's not a lot of other issues related to it as far as I know about. It's just the unknown that'll get you. Like I said, it could be 5,000 miles. I know guys in the local club that I'm a part of, they have cars that they've driven from new to 75,000 miles and don't have any issue. You know, and I talked to them about this thing, and they're not even aware of it, people who have had Corvettes for a while. Can you tell just by listening to your engine if you have the issue? No, not really. These LS7s, I can hear it right now as I'm driving. You can hear the sewing machine sound, and especially if you have a cam or upgraded springs and such like that, you're going to make it even worse, so it'll be louder. People talk about ticking noises and those kind of things. Sure, usually that's a sign of something already on its way out, and you should just stop driving a car at that point anyways until you can get it checked out. But there's just not a foolproof way to diagnose your car and know that, number one, you have the issue, and number two, when it's going to happen or get to the point where you could damage your engine catastrophically. So it's really up to you guys what you want to do with them. I can only tell you what my experience was, that I read up on it. You know, I got my car and I did the head fix within a year. You know, I didn't buy the car and then park it, and just because I'm afraid of what could happen. You can't live in fear either, but you know, when you spend 30, 40, 50, 60,000 on a car, $2,000 isn't the worst bill in the world, knowing you've hopefully prevented something from happening that could have cost you 15 or 20,000. To me, that's a decent return on investment, at least for peace of mind, which can be priceless, let's be honest. So, you know, in summary, you know, guys, just be careful. You know, it doesn't matter how new your car is or how perfect it sounds and drives. This issue can happen to anybody, any year model, any miles, track driven, just street driven, cream puff, trailer queen, doesn't matter. It can definitely happen. Just do a search on it. You'll see other guys on YouTube, or Corvette forum guys. A lot of people upset with GM over the whole thing, but I only was angry for so long. You know, you get angry about it, sure. You'd want GM to maybe have better quality control and maybe acknowledge the issue and maybe give a little break to people who've had to spend the money to fix it, but it really doesn't pay to be angry about it. It is what it is. It's not going to fix itself. So we bought the car. Most of us bought the car knowing that we have the issue, at least on the used car market. Most of us all know that the issue exists. So I'm just a proactive guy. So I just did it within a year, got it over with, put a cam in at the same time, got a good bump in power, and now I can cruise around like this and just enjoy it and not worry too much about it. Now, in 20 or 30,000 miles, I probably will check, at least do a wiggle test, or take it to, I have a couple of friends that are mechanics, at least take it to them and get an opinion from them. If you know any people who specialize in Corvettes, I would definitely recommend that. This isn't just a one and done, forget it forever kind of deal. Get it checked, 10, 20,000 miles tops, just to see if everything's holding up. As far as I've read and know, usually the repaired cars don't have any issues for any significant amount of time. Just get it from someone who knows what they're doing. AHP, you know, WCCH, those kind of places. Again, it's not a 100% perfect fix. That's why you should be proactive and check it every once in a while. But for the most part, if you get it from a well-known company that stands behind their products and service, you're going to get a good result. I have so far. I put about 3,000 or 4,000 miles, maybe more than that, maybe 5,000 or more miles since I did my heads. Obviously with the cam, the car drives a little differently, but the sound of the engine, the ticking noise, nothing has changed since I got that done. And I drive the car hard once in a while, especially on our club runs around Wisconsin. So it's just nice to be able to just have a car, drive it, not worry about that, you know, keep it in the back of your head for the future, but not having to worry about it is nice when you spend so much money on a car and just be able to enjoy it. So that's all I got for today. If you got any other questions or comments or your experiences on it, it might be different, it might be similar to what I've gone through, or opinions, you know, post them up, send me a note. Any and all feedback is always welcome, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.